Welcome to NFL Daily, where last Christmas I gave you my heart. Very next day you took it away. I'm Gregg Rosenthal. I'm here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic. And yeah, that song just is not getting out of my head, so that's why I started the show with it. Jourdan Rodrigue, I've never seen you in such a bubbly, good mood. You are a holiday person, and your twin sister is in town.
I'm not a holiday person. But
this year you are.
Maddie's here. Okay. Maddie's here. She's off the boat. I love it. I'm so excited.
I'm excited for you. I can only imagine what it's like to see your twin after a long time connecting. That's what this time of year is all about. And so we're gonna try to be concise. It's tough. Our producer had some doubts that we can get through this show in under an hour, but I believe in us. We started this show, NFL Daily, our first ever show. You were there with me and Patrick Claybon, and we talked about what's going to give us joy in the 2024 season. So now as we're winding down, we're going to look back a little bit and just quickly go through the AFC. We each have teams and talk about what brought us some joy in this season. We're also going to preview the Netflix games on Christmas. Feels like it's just about to start. And then TNF, Seattle and Chicago, we'll talk about that. And then hopefully our elves are working on a Zoom connection with one of our favorite people to end the show. So I hope we can make it happen, and maybe we'll even hear from some of our listeners. You ready to do it?
And we both wore our hopefully special guest favorite color because it's the color of her football team.
There you go.
Gregg and I accidentally, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll notice Gregg and I actually accidentally wore the same outfit today. We even kind of did our hair the same. Like, you got swoopies, I've got swoopies, you know. But I will say, the person who topped us both in the outfits today is our producer, Eric, behind the glass, who's wearing what I'm told is his second best Santa cat sweater.
Yes, I actually have two cat sweaters with Christmas hats, and this is number 2 of my.
Those are beautiful Santa cats. And one thing I love about Eric and Randy, who has moved on to a better job, is they love all animals. They're not trying to divide the world between cats and dogs. Like, you're for both, right,
yes,
Eric?
I actually have a dog, no cats.
Yet,
but I grew up in a house full of them. I had like 4 dogs and 2 cats at one time, but no cats. My wife is allergic, so I can't have a cat.
I'm team cat and dog. Why can't you love them both? Let's not divide us.
I appreciate the effort of the group behind the glass to, at first, try to stay out of the shop, but then immediately lean into it as you guys. Everybody needs some shine. Everybody's working on this Christmas Eve. Everyone does such a great job. One thing that has brought me joy this year is how kind everyone, welcoming everyone has been. And that starts with everyone behind the glass, and then slowly you bring up the rear. So
I was like, that doesn't include me. But let's talk a little, about what brings us joy. And like I said, there's been some doubts whether the two of us can get through this quickly, and
we're off to a good start.
I believe in us. I'm gonna let you get us going. We're gonna go through the AFC. I hope to do this again next Tuesday, and if we don't, we will do it for the NFC at some point.
I'll see you next Tuesday.
That's absolutely right, and Colleen Wolfe should be there as well. Why don't you start with the Ravens? What's giving you a little bit of joy?
Derrick M. effing Henry has brought me joy all season. King Henry. Now in purple, a color reserved for royalty historically. He's thriving in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson and company. He's given us one of the more dominant rushing seasons that we've seen. And what especially brings me joy is the way, this is like the 10 things I like about you kind of thing too, Christmassy kind of thing. The way, if he gets even a little steam, he runs through and past people. Entering week 17, Derrick Henry has now gained 678 yards after missed tackles this season, which is 144 more than anybody else in the NFL per Next Gen. What joy.
I love that. 2 all-time greats bringing out the best in each other. Kind of like us joining forces this year. I, by the way, should have mentioned Eric has a horn back there. If he thinks we're honking too much and it's going on too long, he can just hit it.
Oh.
Now, that was definitely not too much. That was nice and
magical.
concise. That was beautiful. I'm going to go to Eric's Bills. And Damar Hamlin and his story this year gives me joy because, to me, he is a better candidate for the Comeback Player of the Year award this season than he was last season. And everything that he's gotten over as a human is to be lauded. But now what he's overcoming as just a football player, to me, is just as impressive. It's kind of representing all the 6th and 7th round picks that take to their 2nd or their 3rd year to really get a chance. Like his career, even if what happened to him on the field had never happened, was on a knife's edge, because that's what it's like for all these guys that are just special teamers that are trying. He was a year-to-year type of player, and because of injuries and because of things that happened, he got a chance to be a starter this year, and he proved to be a really solid starter for them on a really good defense. And I think he's guaranteed himself many more years in the league, a 2nd contract. So he's kind of representing all those different types of players that are battling earlier in their career. Now, he's overcome more than most, but it's also really cool to just see him get kind of a foothold into the NFL and know he's going to be part of our lives in the NFL as a safety for a long time. Really cool.
I love that one. He's having a great year, and he overcame literally death. So love this for him. This arc for him is beautiful in so many ways. Well said, Gregg.
And I had to not even bring up James Cook's running style, which is just so cool that him and Dalvin are the exact same as brothers. Like, how is their running style the exact same? All right, hit me with the Bengals.
The Cincinnati Bengals. It's the season of like insane offensive lineman gifts by quarterbacks to their offensive line. Joe Burrow gave his offensive line authentic samurai swords obtained from an armory in California, some of them dating back to the 1500s. I think we have an explanation from Joe Burrow as to this joyful gift that he bequeathed upon his offensive line. Used an old word for an old gift. Joe Burrow, here he is talking about why he gave his O-linemen samurai swords.
Well, they wanted guns. And I was like, I don't know about guns, guys. And so I was in the weapon mindset, and I was like, what's a cool weapon? And samurai swords, I think, are pretty dang cool.
Yeah, he's giving me Dwight Schrute energy.
Yeah.
In that, including the outfit. It's Dwight Schrute adjacent, when he really means business. He takes off the mustard shirt and there's a tank underneath.
And
right?
that's all he's got with the beautiful hair. I absolutely love it. You know what's giving me joy? That Jordan Rodrigue is throwing to tape and doing sound elements without even letting me know. That is amazing and very cool.
It's in the rundown, though.
I never got I didn't check the rundown before, I got to admit. I got not a sword from my father-in-law, but one of these wooden sort of blocks with Japanese lettering and a saying that comes in a very fancy little holder. And so, I know what a great gift that would be around the holidays. Still got that in a nice position. All right, let's talk Browns. Okay, not a great season for the Browns, but I am happy that Jerry Jeudy is becoming the player that a lot of us Jerry Jeudy fans coming into the draft thought he would be someday. And we kind of had him pegged wrong, that he was just this really unique, amazing route runner. And I don't think he's turned into that exactly. He just moves differently than other people, but he's gotten more mature, I think, as he's gotten older, and he creates big-time separation, and him and Jameis kind of making each other better and just helping out their fantasy teams along the way made it happen. And the fact that he did this after the Jets didn't trade for him because his Madden rating wasn't high enough, that just is the little extra sprinkle that you get here for the holidays. So Jerry Jeudy brought me some joy this year, fulfilling his potential. Nice little contract they got him under there in Cleveland as well.
That's a good one. Good for him. Loved his tweet, and also Madden's tweet about this situation as well. Little great teamwork over there. So I've got Denver. Okay. Now, we're going to show you some clips and some highlights of, one, Patrick Surtain II, a.k.a. PS2, a.k.a. still one of the best cornerbacks in the league, who is playing like the best cornerback in the National Football League right now. This is more tape than you've seen probably if you're a casual fan or a watcher who's not in the All-22 than you've seen of PS2 all season. And why is that? Because quarterbacks are not throwing to him, so you're not seeing him on your broadcast screen. He has only been targeted on 10% of his coverage snaps this season, the lowest rate among all cornerbacks with a minimum of 250 coverage snaps. And it's a good thing that quarterbacks are not targeting him, because when he has been targeted, offenses have lost minus 28.1 in EPA, which is the second fewest target EPA that any defender is forcing in the NFL per next-gen stats. Pat Surtain was, and should be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, in my opinion, despite missing some time. And he brings me joy. Watching him play brings me so much joy.
I think he's got a chance to win it. It's so wide open this year. We talked about how there's going to be ballots where you have to pick 5 players, I believe. He'll be on a lot of those ballots. I think he's got a chance if he happened to have a big final couple weeks. Sometimes it takes, he's on NFL Network on Saturday. It's a big game against the Bengals. Maybe he dominates Jamar Chase, does something like that. That could get him over the top. I think it could happen. I'm going Houston Texans. I'm going Jalen Petrie. I like it when a player gets a lot of buzz coming into his second season. We all think he's going to be great, and then he has a disappointing year. And then the following year after that, it's kind of the guys you forgot about. He has that breakout that you expected. They changed him completely into a slot player this year, an absolutely awesome year after rebound. He is so physical. That really stands out in the running game, but he's been better in coverage than anyone would have expected. He's basically turned into that slot defender that Jalen Ramsey was, but sometimes it's a safety, sometimes it's a cornerback. I didn't think Petrie had it in him. He's had a really nice rebound season for the Texans, who we'll talk about a little later on the preview.
I love that. When I'm trying to make this a thing, when he gets an interception or he makes a play on the ball, can we call it like a Petri dish?
Ooh.
Can we?
I like it.
Okay, cool. We'll take it. All right, I've got the Indianapolis Colts.
I could have sold that better. Petri dish. Let's go.
Thanks, Gregg. Indianapolis Colts. I've got that. We already went through the young quarterback panic a few times in recent memory, including with Bryce Young, who is and was an outlier to Anthony Richardson, the Indianapolis Colts quarterback, in so many ways. But let's apply the same patience and the same logic that we just need to see this young, talented, very erratic player get a full year of development and work with his biomechanics specialists, which their job, and they did this with Josh Allen as well, is specifically to work through the entire offseason to make Anthony Richardson a better and more efficient thrower of the football. Efficient not meaning statistically he's racking up stats and metrics. Efficient meaning every piece of energy in his body is transferring to the other piece of his body in the appropriate and correct way that helps him throw the football at the most biomechanically sound, which helps short yardage, mid-range yardage, and he's already got the long ball speed or the long ball target range down. So I just think that this is going to help him. I'd like to see a full offseason with this before he actually has to face judgment from all of the jurors that the analysts and the us's of the world are sort of assigning.
I saw Eric, hovering over that honk button. It was about
to happen. I saw your face.
Once you got into
I was like, how do I land the plane? How do I land the plane?
No, that's an awesome one. Still younger than Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, and he was a lot of fun to watch last week. I want to see more of that from the Colts. Jaguars. Tough season. I got a lot of teams with tough seasons. More on that. Sometimes I got to just repeat things I've said. Brian Thomas, watching this dude play has given me so much joy, and I've talked about it a lot. So what's new that I can talk about? I was thinking he not only is wide receiver 1 in this class for me over Harrison and Neighbors and everyone else, because guys that big moving like that is just rare. I actually was thinking about the last 3 years of wide receivers, and other than Puka Nacua, which is a different kind of receiver. That would be a fun all-pro team. Those two guys, very different skill sets. I think he's the best receiver in the last 3 classes. I would take him over Garrett Wilson and Olave. I would take him over, Zay Flowers and Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think his ceiling is just crazy because he does the subtle stuff better already than we expected. And people that size just don't move that fluid and that fast. Love me some Brian Thomas. They found themselves a true wide receiver 1. You got the Chiefs.
Yes, it's weird how I keep getting these really fun and interesting teams. Andy Reid brings me joy. It's that time of year where we talk about Pat Mahomes' heroics, obviously, but I want to call attention again to Big Red himself, Andy Reid. Several weeks ago, he secured his 10th consecutive double-digit win season in the regular season. He has double-digit wins in the regular season in 11 of his 12 seasons in Kansas City. And the one year he won less than double digits, he still won 9 games. He is astonishing. He's still doing it. The contract runs through 2029. He sort of hinted that maybe he's done after that. Enjoy it while you have him. Enjoy watching him. Just his entire vibe brings me joy.
He clearly has so much joy when it comes to football, or else he wouldn't be able to do it like this. He doesn't always give it away, but if you were somehow creating a contest of just who loves ball the most, I mean, Andy Reid's got to be right there at the top. I had him third in my Coach of the Year ladder that Shooky and I did. Like, it wouldn't be crazy to make him number one. Who's doing it better than Andy Reid? All right, I got the Raiders.
Woo!
Okay. It's a couple things here. I was going to go Bowers, but I just keep going with these rookie players that I love. I'm giving you two things, actually, with the Raiders now. I'll be quick. Remember, we always talked about the tight end evolution. Oh, the tight end, the evolution. It's happening. Like, these are the new players. All right, Bowers is that next guy. He is the evolution. We've reached it. This is it. He's next. The other thing, the Raiders playing their ass off every week actually has given me joy. It's why they made me look smart by beating the Jaguars last week. I was like, they're going to win this game because they are playing so hard defensively, sometimes not smart, but so hard. You know it when you see it for Antonio Pierce, and yet they keep losing these games. So just a team that's going nowhere the whole time, playing their ass off in the middle of a 10-game losing streak, that gave me some joy. Look, two things pretty quick.
Nailed it. Wow.
Did I?
The thing on Brock Bowers is interesting because I'm starting to talk to executives and people in personnel departments about evaluating classes of certain position groups coming forward into the next couple of years. And he's getting the comp now. You know, it used to be other tight ends around the league. It used to be the Kittles and the Kelseys and all of that. He's the one drawing it's like, well, I don't think he does this as well as Brock Bowers. I don't think he does this.
Everyone wants a Bowers. Nobody's ever done it.
Nobody does things as well as that. Like, why are we comping this guy? Like, he's just over here. Comp to someone else.
Maybe it'd be like quarterbacks where we really have created new quarterbacks that we just didn't see these style of quarterbacks before, and now there's like 6, 7, 8 of them. Maybe there'll be more Brock Bowers, but to me, he's one of one. Go ahead.
You died inside. That was great. I have the Los Angeles Chargers, another fun team. How about that? That's really weird how that worked out. The Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh pairing and all the sound bites that it's given us across the year. He's Justin Herbert's ultimate hype man. It brings me so much joy. This is what Justin Herbert needed. He has been open about the fact that he's not necessarily the big personality, rah, out in your face kind of guy. Well, Jim Harbaugh is that person, and he compliments Justin Herbert, and he brings the best and most confident football out of him. And my favorite sound clip from the year, I know our producer Hytham has it queued up. I'm going to do it again to you, Greg. Here's Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert.
I mean, I'm changing his name to Beast. He's Beast Herbert. Half man, half beast. No quarterback has completed more passes in the first 5 years of an NFL career than Justin Herbert. In the history of the National Football League, that speaks to his greatness. And just to be around it every day that's what it feels like. It feels like you're around greatness every single day.
I love it. Joy.
Yeah, we could all use a Jim Harbaugh in our lives to pump us up that much, but then we need to be Justin Herbert. We need to be that great. Think about that. He's earned it. I love it too. As a Herbert fan, like this is the era that I've always wanted. I got the Dolphins. You might say this is a mediocre team. I've enjoyed this team quite a bit this season. I enjoy the song that they play when they score the touchdowns. I mean, that's been there forever, but I love it. I've enjoyed Chop Robinson. I've enjoyed Tua working within very small parameters. But the thing that gave me the most joy is watching Devon Achane actually be the running back that plays the receiver position that actually is the wide receiver. Last week, there's a play where he's in the slot and he's running an in-breaker against a top cornerback and he's high-pointing the ball. People always talk about, we're going to, flex out our running back as a receiver and they're going to run routes. He's in their running back room in general, but especially him. He's the only one I've seen really running those routes like a wide receiver runs those routes, and they've built a lot of the offense around him. So Devon Achane as a receiver.
Nice one. I like
joy.
That. I like that. I have the New England Patriots, and that is interesting how, once again, that seems to have come up, Jourdan.
I've got more on that in a second. I've got some numbers.
I find joy. Look at your face right now.
Yeah.
I find joy, and this is part of it, right? I truly am finding joy this year watching you, Gregg Rosenthal, fall in love, deeply in love, with yet another New England Patriots quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, this one, I fell in love with him before he was even in New England Patriots. I just love young quarterbacks. What? I'm not allowed to talk about Drake May. We get Herbert and Drake on Saturday. I guess we'll preview that game on the preview show.
I do.
What a matchup. That's everything I've ever wanted in a quarterback matchup. That's beautiful.
I do love it, and I love at the beginning of the year, it brought me joy how you watched his All-22 very quietly, like sort of with an extra screen under your desk, and you held hope but refrained from letting any honking about how you were right this entire time about
It's not about being right.
Slip out. I'm being earnest here, man. Like, about a third of the way through this season, you were all in and you wanted us to know it.
Yes.
Loud and proud with your love for Drake Maye and the fact that you were right. Don't forget that. You're starting to fall hard. Drake Maye comes up in conversations he is not even a part of as long as you are speaking. Gregg, you're finding slivers of happiness in the Patriots fan experience after the long, hard years of 2020 and 2022. So congrats. And I love this for you.
I mean, 2019 wasn't
has
great.
Brought me joy.
That last Brady season was a little depressing, but tried to enjoy that division title. I got the Jets. I keep getting these bad teams. I got to be real. The Jets have not given me joy. So I think being honest, that's something that gives me joy. But what I would say to Jets fans is you made a good pick. In a class with all these great receivers, Olu Fashanu showed enough down the stretch that you got one right at left tackle. And I do find it ironic that Joe Douglas, their GM, spent all this time before they let him go just desperately trying to build a good offensive line and mostly failing. And I got to say, their offensive line right now looks better than it's looked at any point. Now, I hope the next staff can keep it going, but they'll have a really good young left tackle. That spot, not taking receiver when Bowers and other people are on the board, was very tricky to get it right. I think they got it right, and they're going to have a dude for a long time, so that's good news for the Jets. I can't say they've given me a lot of joy this year. That's just being real.
I think that's very fair.
Yeah.
I think that is very fair.
I don't think they've given their fans a lot of joy.
I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cam Hayward. I mean, there's a lot of joy, I think, that to be found in Pittsburgh this year, including all of the Mike Tomlin decisions and also just how every Pittsburgh Steelers player seems to be like a perfect fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is awesome. But Cam Hayward's having a remarkable season. That brings me a lot of joy. He has 8 sacks, but where he is especially making a difference is in their run defense, where that defense is 8th in total yards allowed this season, 7th in yards per carry, just gave up 162 on the ground to our king, Derrick Henry. But per Next Gen Stats, the Steelers defense has allowed over 2 more full yards per carry on average when Cam Hayward is off the field versus when he is on the field this season. It goes from 3.4 yards per carry allowed when he's on the field to a whopping 5.6 yards per carry allowed when he is off the field. That's astounding.
Defensive Player of the Year. Let's push for it. I think he might be my choice right now. It's a strange year. James Harrison won it in a strange year. Terrell Suggs, when he won it, that was a strange year. Stephon Gilmore pulled it off. There's not an obvious choice. I think TJ Watt's a bad choice because I think just it's probably his worst year out of the last 5. I know he has a lot of sacks. Cam Hayward is a really good choice. I think he could be Defensive Player of the Year. Let's wrap it up with the Titans. Now, what's not giving me joy is that Jordan gave me all these bad teams.
I just went in alphabetical
order. As I was going through it the last 5 teams that we've talked about have a combined 20 and 55 record. And I was like, is she setting me up? I think she was. And yet, you know what's given me joy? Even in dark situations, you can find some positives. This kid, Tavondre Sweat. I know he came into the draft with a lot of problems. I'm not ignoring those, but just on the field, a guy that all the draft nicks thought on the field was going to be a bust and was super overrated, and they didn't like his effort and all this. I've watched him. There's a lot of effort. I love a 365, 70-pound guy who is just throwing people around. He could be in the mix for Defensive Rookie of the Year if we gave nose tackles any love, because in terms of a foundational piece on the defensive side of the ball, he has been as good as any, and he is just incredibly strong. So when you put on that Titans All-22, you get a little Pollard, who's been really good, powerful, but Sweat really stands out. So I did it. I came up with stuff to love about every single team. You know what else I love? Can you guess?
The color green.
That we did it. That Hytham and Eric didn't think we could get through this segment quickly. You only gave me the sound, as a sort of a bit.
I thought it was real.
Let's go to break with that sound. It is Christmas time. Let's talk a little Netflix game preview and a little TNF after the break. Oh, yeah.
I love Eric always plays the great rock Christmas music for me. I love it.
It is amazing.
And my Chucks today,
We're in a joyful spirit. You guys tried to take me out of it by saying I was honking about Drake May. I saw what you all were doing, and I didn't want to give you the satisfaction. Now I'm really looking forward to these games. They're taking over the building, the Netflix people, because they're working out of an NFL Network studios. So just downstairs, you ran into who? Drew Brees and RG3?
Robert Griffin III. The whole crew is coming in. You ran into one of the GOATs and legends and icons.
Saw our friend Mina Kimes just as I was walking up to the studio. She was walking down. They're doing some rehearsals. So everyone check out the two games. It's going to be fun. Chiefs, Steelers, Ravens, Texans. When they set these games up, they figured there's no way that these games could be stinkers. And it does turn out they are two of the best games of the week.
Yes.
There's only so many good games. We got Minnesota, Green Bay on Sunday, but these two games mean so much. It is crazy to think, Jourdan. Let's start with the Chiefs and the Steelers. That's a 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff. It's crazy to think, and we're taping this on Christmas Eve day, that in roughly 24 hours, Patrick Mahomes could be done playing football until the divisional round of the playoffs.
R.I.P. everybody else.
Right, because if they can win this game and clinch home field, you got to think that they're going to rest him in Week 18. Then they have the bye. That's a conversation for another day. But big-time stakes for them and big-time stakes for the Steelers, who are trying to win the division and trying to get a home game. They are tied right now with the Ravens at 10-5.
I really like the stakes of this game because it's the Chiefs who, I'm not trying to be dramatic here because 14-1, nothing to sneeze at. They've already showed that they are going to have a strong season. But after this last week, the Chiefs have arrived, I think, fully, because that was one of their most complete-looking offensive performances where they had multiple layers of an offense actually running. Patrick Mahomes was incredibly efficient playing through that ankle injury, and he was getting the ball out fast, and he was moving. They were moving this offense. They were amassing, I think you pointed this out, a significant number of yards per play that would have led the league in most other weeks. The Chiefs are here. They are scary. They are not fluky if they continue in this way. And this is a Steelers team that has its back sort of creeping toward the wall a little bit. They really need to snap out of this. They need George Pickens back. We'll talk about that.
Looks like he's back.
Looks like he's going to be back. Might be missing Joey Porter Jr., which is going to be a tough loss because that means they'll have to play at least one backup corner, even if Dante Jackson comes back. This is kind of a bit of a crunch time situation for the Steelers, who kind of tend to show up in crunch time.
Right. I think they're going to respond in this game, but they haven't been beating the allegations. We said their schedule is going to get really hard down the stretch, and for the most part, they stood up to it. But last 2 weeks, they've lost by 2 touchdowns to two of the best teams in the NFL in back-to-back weeks. So I do think they respond in this game, and it's going to help that they get, according to the injury report, Deshaun Elliott, who's been really valuable for them at safety back, George Pickens, who I don't need to go on, but he clearly is kind of the Jenga piece for that offense.
Yeah.
And then Dante Jackson at cornerback, who really hasn't played that well, but he is a starter, and with Joey Porter Jr. probably out for this game. So they are getting some people back. Chris Jones hasn't been practicing. That's something to keep an eye on. Maybe it's just because of the strange week, but he obviously would be a massive, massive loss for the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's interesting because George Pickens being such a crucial part and a crucial element of this offense. Obviously, it's not just about the plays he can make, but the space that he creates, the extra room on the field in general. When you have someone who can stretch the field like that, who is being targeted and is a threat, then you just open up a lot more grass for everybody to work on, right? And that would help the run game in turn. But what I think is concerning about the Steelers in general and the way that they are playing football, as exciting as it's been, as correct as they've been in a lot of the decisions they've made this year, when so much of your offense hinges on one of the lower probability plays that you can make, which is the deep shot or the mid to deep range pass play,
right.
When so much of your offense's success and explosiveness is predicated on making that play, and it looks this different without, and they moved the ball well last week, I will give them that, but They're not running the ball efficiently. Even though they're trying to run the ball and they load up in heavy personnel a lot, they're still not running the ball statistically efficiently. And you could see that on the tape as well. It's like a style over substance situation, and they need to be more complete when infusing that substance into the middle parts of their offense. And when the deep shot is back, that's great, but you cannot hinge your offense on one of the lower probability plays.
And yet, they're counting on him, and Calvin Austin's played well for them. I think he's a legitimate piece, and Van Jefferson stuff. It's like, that's just who they are. And yet, Russ, it's funny. I actually thought he had one of his best games of the season last week, except for the turnovers.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like he has gotten a little too much credit over the course of the season when he hasn't always been playing his best. So it's just funny how that works. So they're going to need him to play well against this defense, which has played better. We do have some updates on the injury report. The official one is out. Joey Porter Jr. is officially out.
Okay.
But everyone else that they were worried about is not even on the injury report anymore. So that's important. Chris Jones is questionable after being limited on Tuesday, and so you would expect that he would play. Same thing with Juwan Taylor. They won't have DJ Humphries back, so it's going to be Joe Thuney again at left tackle. I thought he's played pretty well, and Shamari Connor, who at their slot position could be victimized because this is not a deep secondary. They've moved Trent McDuffie back to the slot the last couple of weeks, and that has been huge because he wasn't that great on the outside, and so you were hurting two positions. Yeah. And now at least you have an all-pro slot defender, and you're just better because of that. So,
well, they use that logic when they move Joe Thuney too. They're technically hurting their interior a bit by moving Joe Thuney, but now
that one makes more sense to me.
Exactly. But now it's the same logical application. They're now, even though they're weakening one element of they're putting a very an A++ player at a position that desperately needs it. Now, the same thing in moving him back to the slot, that is absolutely an A++ player playing at an A+ position. Now, I know it's not Joe Thuney's natural position to play at left tackle, but you're still putting an A++ player at a crucial position of need in, late December, and I think that is a logical thing.
He's done it before, too. He did it with the Patriots and did it well, and he's got the toughest matchup possible, and that's how the Steelers win. I think the Steelers cover. They're 3.5-point underdogs in this game, or 3 either way. I like the Steelers there. I think the Steelers might win this game. I promise you, I haven't picked against the Chiefs all season except for the Bills game, and maybe one other, the Eagles. One other game that I got wrong that they did win, but I do think this is a spot they show up, and the way they would do it is just what makes them special. It's Watt, Herbig, and Highsmith. You got to show up. Maybe Watt hasn't been 100% healthy lately.
And Hayward, I mean, you
and Hayward, of course. I'm thinking of the edges, so that's Thuney, but you're absolutely right. Their pass rush.
They don't have Thuney on the interior anymore.
Right.
This is a Cam Hayward game.
So they need to just absolutely dominate, and we'll see if Patrick Mahomes continues what he did last week. That should scare everyone. He got rid of the ball so quickly. His time to throw was nothing. They were reading the defense, and he's been holding onto the ball and taking a lot of hits, and he just didn't do that last week. Hollywood Brown will help that out. Xavier Worthy's been a little more comfortable. Does Hollywood's role continue to increase? But yeah, to me, it's one of those games where one side has Chris Jones and has some great defensive players, but sometimes it's not about the X's and O's, and it's just if Watt, Herbig, and Highsmith and Hayward, which is one of the best pass rush groups we've seen in a long time, can just show up and they all play their absolute best, I think they end up winning this game.
It's going to be interesting because, to your point, Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, they have sort of become like the 3-point shooters in this offense where they're making these explosive plays. They're making these low probability but high reward plays down the field. But the Chiefs are also helping get the ball out of Pat Mahomes' hand really fast because they're now working Nuke Hopkins and Travis Kelce in the intermediate portions, which is so interesting that Nuke Hopkins is picking up the gimme plays and picking up the grind it out kind of plays. And I love that. Because he can do everything, right?
It's I was going to say a smaller tight end, but he's not even. He's still just the tight end size.
He's just so gifted. And so I think that has been an absolute game changer for them is they can win in this way now, especially getting a couple of other players back in those deeper layers, because now you don't need those receivers who are at the sort of the top of the field and who are stretching the field in the way that they do. You're not needing them to do more for you. You're only needing them to do what they do best.
Really looking forward to this one. My friend guest on the show, Anthony Jeselnik, said, enjoy the Steelers' victory on Christmas. He is confident. We're also going to try to get him back for the playoffs to talk about his Steelers. He's feeling confident about this one. There is something about that. It's home. This is so stupid. It's like home and it's Christmas. I don't know. I could just imagine a very Tomlin victory. It's just in my head.
I'm going to pick the Steelers just because.
Oh my gosh, we can't both. Then now I'm taking the Chiefs.
Okay, I think you should take the Chiefs.
Yeah.
The Chiefs is a smarter pick. They won 14 games this year.
Yeah.
But I'm going to pick the Steelers based on vibes because I love Pittsburgh football in December and January when they get the opportunity to do that. It was described by one of the players. I was reading this great Mike Tomlin piece where a bunch of players were quoted talking about him as a head coach and what makes him special. And one of the players quoted in the piece was talking about December football in Pittsburgh, and he described it as the air is heavy and everything feels gothic.
Ooh.
And I was like, F yeah, I'm going Steelers.
It's funny because that reminds me more than any team of the Ravens. Our next team we're going to talk about. The Ravens' home field advantage is very
Nice
gothic
transition.
and black, but it's true. Like, I think of that home field, there is, like, for their night games and everything.
I love it.
There's, like, a darkness to it in the best way possible. But they're not in Baltimore. They're in Houston. That gives the Texans a little edge here. I think they have a nice home field crowd, one of the most underrated crowds in the league, and one of the most underrated fan bases in the league. I feel like the Texans fans don't get the love that they deserve just for the energy, the intelligence, the noise. I see you, Texans fans. You're one of the least annoying fan bases out there, and you're going to need to help your team here because you're fighting an uphill battle. They are 5.5 points underdogs at home in Week 17 when they're going to go to the playoffs. That is tough, but it is bad timing. I think they are catching the Ravens at a bad time. Both of these teams just had their bye. They're fresher. More than anything, this is a Ravens defense, to me, that is no longer just shooting themselves in the foot. And so they're letting the league's best offense take center stage while they just don't mess it up. And I think that's really important, heading into this stretch of the season.
This defense is, it's not as dramatic as a night and day change, but they made some personnel adjustments. And Zach Orr has been coaching his ass off. I mean, that dude is 32 years old, Greg. Like, to be coordinating a defense that has gotten better, that is under so much intense scrutiny at 32 years old, I think he's done a hell of a job this season, especially after losing not just the previous DC, but a bunch of the assistant coaches
All right,
too.
Hell of a job.
He's coaching his butt off.
They've declined pretty hard.
You can't
They had to bring in Dean Pease, but what they've done is they've done the Ravens thing where they've made great adjustments, and he deserves credit for that. They've simplified things.
That's coaching.
Absolutely.
That's coaching.
So good job.
At 32, I mean, come on. Like, I'm 32. I couldn't do that shit. No way.
Well, right. I mean, at 32, I could barely handle. I think I had a newborn.
I tied my shoes
I had
today.
a newborn,
Congrats
and
to
I was
me.
soon to leave for the NFL.com as an editor, and that alone scrambled my brain trying to start that new job. I can only imagine what it's like to be a coordinator. So yes, Kyle Hamilton's kind of in the back end. Roquan Smith is doing what he's doing, and maybe he doesn't have as much going on there. And you don't need to be a super football nerd to just see the busts aren't there. The communication is better. They just look like a normal defense. I don't even know if they're great. But
I'm
if
not
they're
calling them a great defense.
They're the 13th,
they've gotten better.
Right. If they're the 13th best defense in the NFL, that's enough to go win a Super Bowl. And that's enough to stop this version of the Texans offense, unfortunately.
Yeah.
As someone who's kind of pulling for them to be good.
Absolutely agree. And absolutely heartbreaking what happened to the Texans last week with Tank Dell. That's going to be felt in so many ways, even more so than on the field. That's going to be really, really hard for them to overcome. They've already had to overcome issues with the offensive line. CJ Stroud just getting rattled on certain plays and against certain pressure that just is constant. And now he doesn't have one of his favorite players as an outlet and one of his dear friends on the field as well. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And I think that's going to be significant for them down this. I mean, it is something that they're going to have to overcome. I don't know necessarily how they do it because
he was playing his best football, Tank Dell, of the year.
Now, I will say, scientists and our top analysts in the NFL are working overtime this week, trying to quantify a thing that some are calling the Beyonce bump.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So in Houston, Beyonce is going to be on the scene in Houston.
She will be in the building, yes.
Yes.
It's going to be very distracting, I feel like, for the
and
players.
So I feel like just her aura, her presence just lifts everybody. I don't think that's worth the negative spread. I think that she at least gives them a field goal advantage, if not a touchdown. You know, I feel like the Beyonce, but scientists are working on it. I can't specifically
I love that. Lamar said he's going to watch.
He's
going to watch. He's going to come out and watch. So he's already distracted. So that's a help.
I mean, her aura and her excellence, right? I just feel like that's enough to
Houston's own. You got to give a little bump here. Now, they do have special things about them. I could have chosen Joe Mixon for how he runs for what gives me joy. I think he leads the league in a little-known stat, which is runs hard plus his cuts make me gasp composite. Like, if you combine those two things in terms of just running hard every single play and making a cut that makes me gasp, I think he's the NFL leader for that. And so they just need, they need him and CJ and Nico Collins to just be special. I know that's bad analysis, but they are three special players.
That's not bad analysis.
I think
we call that the sternum quotient. It's when you go,
yes,
clutch your sternum.
I think CJ's played better since the bye. There have been rough plays, but I think there's been more of what makes him special too. And I think he showed a lot of that last week. And so maybe this Ravens pass rush isn't that great. Maybe he can get it done. I am a little worried about the injuries on the Texans offensive line. Juice Struggs is hurt. Shaq Mason is out. So you're adding new injuries to the mix for a group that's just rough to begin with. They're already missing the right tackle.
I'm going to pick the Ravens in this one. First of all, it goes without saying, but should be repeated often. Lamar is playing just otherworldly football, and especially very consistently. You know, he had a couple of games where he maybe didn't look totally like the Lamar that we've seen throughout most of the year, but overall been absolutely excellent. I love that he has some island games. I think this time of year, especially as the MVP conversation continues, I love that he's getting a couple of island games. I think he has the opportunity and the potential to do something even more historic than the historic thing that he did last year. And a lot of his advanced
Which is what? Win a third MVP?
And a lot of his advanced statistics are continuing to ascend and continuing to even be better than years previously. And so I think that this getting him in front of a lot of people is important if he can continue to meet that bar. And the Ravens in general are an absolute wagon. I mean, they just and again, like you said, I'm not crowning them as a great defense. I think that they've coached their butts off and they have made adjustments, and that is what good coaches do, and that is why they've improved. And they're playing hard for that coaching staff as well. And so I think that if you can at least be a middle-of-the-pack defense and your offense is capable of lifting you to extraordinary heights as they've done all season long, then this team is just going to be incredibly dangerous, and I think they start to continue to roll, because they have been rolling, but they especially continue to roll into this time of the year that is so important to have that inertia.
I hope it doesn't happen, but I think they cover the 5.5 points. Jimmy Ward out for the season. Aziz Al-Shair, their defense is totally different without him. He can return from his suspension next week. Zay Flowers, a little banged up coming into this one. Justice Hill, probably not going to play, or he's definitely not going to play. And we'll see. I hope you're right about the MVP thing's tricky, because
it is.
The discourse is just going to annoy me, but this is one of the better quarterback seasons I've ever seen from Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen isn't far off, and I'm hoping it isn't an annoying debate. I think Josh Allen will win it if he keeps it going, but it reminds me a little bit of 2004, which a lot of people think was the greatest quarterback season of all time by Peyton Manning, and I would rank Dante Culpepper's 2004 at least in the top 5 quarterback seasons of my lifetime. And I don't, it's weird. If you were there, you remember it. And yet he didn't get the award because he was in the same year as Peyton Manning having that award. And that's what I feel like is going to happen, maybe a little less, but to either Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson this year. It's unfortunate. Let's go to the Thursday Night Football. We don't have to spend as much time on this one because it's the Bears. And yes, they might be the best team I've ever seen with a 9-game losing streak. That's the nicest thing I can say about your team, Hytham. Right? Is it 9 at this point, or is it 10? How have they lost 9 straight games? They really aren't that bad when you watch them.
I know.
Every week.
They play so hard.
It it's up and down in terms of that. But they're much better. They are a 6 or 7 win team.
9 consecutive loss team relative to that.
Yes.
They play hard. Okay.
Yeah, and Caleb, I think Caleb is coming off his best game since at least before Thanksgiving, maybe his best game of the entire season. I thought he played really well last week. His problem has been stringing those types of games together. It won't be easy. This defense shows you a lot of different looks. For the most part, has been consistent, and it's going to be a tough matchup. The Seahawks in the playoff race at 8-7, stupidly, and I don't want to spend much time on this, but stupidly, this game doesn't matter for them, which is like kind of a dirty secret. They actually have basically the same chance to make the playoffs if they win or lose, which defies your. It just like blows my mind. It's like, wait, really? But because of the strength of victory tiebreaker, all that really matters for them is that the Rams lose on Saturday, and it sort of doesn't matter if they win or lose. But they are going to want to try to win, and I think they will win and cover the 3.5 points.
Yeah, obviously, and there is such a massive hinge, right, coming up this weekend, because the Rams would win the NFC West with a Seattle loss or tie, and the Rams beat Arizona. But then Seattle also wants the Rams to lose for their own playoff ramifications. And I know you've gone over the permutations. And
they just need the Rams to lose. That's all there is.
Yeah.
That's really all there is.
It really is. We can permutate away. But that really, it does boil down to those two games that are going on this weekend. And I think that it is, I do have a question for you, because you've watched probably every snap of Geno Smith over the last several years. Mm-hmm. And I say that as a compliment, like you have the data. How hurt does he seem to you? Does he seem like he's...
I mean, he looked a little banged up during that game from maybe something that happened during that game.
That's
but
what I thought.
I wouldn't say that's been a major factor.
Yeah, I mean...
during that game, yes.
He played... I thought he played great football, but I thought he got not re-injured necessarily. It's dramatic.
At the end of the game.
No, but I thought he got like just banged up even more. And I don't know. I'm concerned about that takes a toll. He's taken a lot of hits this season. It's late in the year.
Short
it's
week.
Cold.
You're on the road.
It's cold.
The Bears are just very unpredictable. They like their defense will play well one game and not well the other, and the offense does vice versa. So they never play well at the same time. I actually was encouraged how Seattle played when I watched that game. Geno made too many risky throws, and they were too pass heavy. Just 46 passes.
Well, they've been that way all year.
I know, but it was just kind of crazy considering the scenario. That said, when I watched that game, I thought it couldn't have been more evenly played. And I was just like, these are two good teams with pretty good offenses and defenses going back and forth. All the numbers, the success rate, the yards, just the eyeball test, like every unit had extraordinary plays, and it just looked like two good teams, and one is a little bit better, and that's the Vikings. And that's not surprising to me. The Seahawks, I was like, yeah, they are a pretty good team. They are a 9 or 10 win team. That's just where they were. We'll have conversations about whether Tariq Woolen and DK Metcalf and Draymond Jones are parts of their future. I think that's something that's interesting.
There's some chatter about whether the OC is a part of their future.
Right. That could all be there. I think Geno Smith, just because of how his contract looks and because of the market, will be there for sure next year. But go take care of business. Show me that you are the 9 to 10 win team that I think you are. And yeah, I'm torn on Saturday because I want a good Week 18 game. I kind of want the Rams to lose, even though my family would hate me for that.
Well, they're in
just
the
setup. Just the setup.
You can celebrate.
They're
quietly.
definitely not listening. Okay, that is it for our Christmas Day, and yes, December 26th preview. I kind of forgot that TNF game even existed. I was like, what? They're jamming in one more TNF here for the season. What a treat it's been going over all the things that bring us joy. Jourdan, doing this show with you has brought me a ton of joy, but we're not ending. You know, we will see you next Tuesday. Colleen Wolfe will be back for that show, and we were hoping to read some of her cards aloud, and we decided, let's get her in the studio. We applaud all of our listeners, and if you follow Colleen on socials, check it out on Instagram. She put it up that you guys came correct. You sent your Christmas cards to poor, woe-begotten Colleen Wolfe. No, she's with her family enjoying the Christmas
including
season
Tim.
Right now. The whole crew, including Tim. And why don't you just keep sending them? Send it here to NFL Network, care of Colleen Wolfe, and we will read them next week. You can make it a Christmas card. You can make it a New Year's card, and we'll get that as part of the show next.
My goal for Colleen, because I feel like she is the type of personality that would like truly derive so much joy from this, is that she continues to get specifically Christmas cards all through the spring and summer. So listeners, you guys already have come through in so many ways. Keep sending cards to Colleen Wolfe, care of NFL Network. The address is very public. Make sure that you continue the Christmas card theme. We're going to do this all the way through July. We're going to make her month, week, year. She deserves it. She is joy personified. I love that we're doing this episode today because Colleen is joy personified. And it's been, for me, just like I can't even believe how lucky I am to get to come in here every Tuesday and see you guys. So I really appreciate it.
Very well said. Let's go. Let's let everyone behind the glass go do their last minute shopping or whatever, wrapping, whatever they need to do. We will be back on Thursday. Patrick will be with me to recap those Christmas games and look ahead to the rest of the Week 17 slate. So we got Hanukkah starting. We got Christmas. To everyone out there, yes. When old Saint Nick is about to go make his deliveries, you know football is back.